It's time for Northwestern Outdoors Radio, the award-winning show that covers fishing, hunting, and all sorts of outdoor recreation here in the Great Northwest. Northwestern Outdoors is brought to you every week by Max Lure Company, a legacy of innovation since 1969, by Loophole Optics, America's optical authority, by Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors, by Wallowa County, nature is on display in Northeast Oregon, and by The Real News, your fishing resource. Also by Shiloh Inns and Suites, providing you with affordable excellence, and by Mardon Resort, the place for fishing, hunting, and more in Eastern Washington. And now, it's time to head outside with your host, John Cruz.
How about those Seattle Seahawks? Talk about the comeback kids. Couldn't believe the job they did in the NFC Championship against the Packers. But as much fun as that is, the outdoors is just as much fun. And even though it's the middle of January, there's a lot of fun to be had outside, whether you fish, hunt, want to go to a sportsman show, or just play in the snow. We're covering all of this and more this week on Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We'll start off by talking to Steve Leonard, a well-known guide, about catch and keep sturgeon fishing on the lower Columbia River bordering Washington and Oregon. From there, we're going to talk to Lance Mers for an extended Max Minute about places to go fishing in Idaho for kokanee and a can't-miss lure you've got to use when you do so. Chris Moores with Oak Grove Guns in Eugene is going to break down the basics of coyote hunting here in the Northwest. And then Todd McKay with the Bitterroot National Forest has got some great places for you to visit along the border of Idaho and Montana, perfect for snow play. Joe Brennan with O'Loughlin Trade Shows is with us again. This time he's previewing one of the biggest sportsman shows in the entire nation, and it's coming up February 4th through the 8th at the Expo Center in Portland. In addition to all of this, we've got news about a great place to catch big walleye right now in eastern Washington, a report about a record-breaking trout caught in Idaho, and a question for you to ponder. Should you kill one endangered species to save another? That's a question being answered right now here in the Northwest. But before we get into all of this great outdoor stuff, we need to talk about drunken elk. It's not what you think, though. It's a recipe for some of the tastiest sounding elk I've ever heard of, and it's coming up this week on Sportsman Spotlight with David Sparks.
Drunken Elk Recipe, David Sparks, Sportsman Spotlight. Yesterday we talked with Christopher Clonch about his recipe for drunken elk, and today here it is.
I take 1.5 cups of Zinfandel, 8 garlic cloves, 1 piece of orange peel that I zest, some fresh thyme, and morel mushrooms, and use these as part of the drunken elk sauce. So what I do is I take the garlic cloves, the wine, some olive oil, the orange zest, the thyme, salt and pepper, and I marinate it overnight. And then I pat that elk steak dry, and I just barbecue it for about 4 minutes aside. As always with game, you want to cook it hot and fast to keep the tenderness. You do not want to slow cook it because it will become tough. Then I take the Zinfandel and I make a Zinfandel reduction and take it down to a very thick sauce that I can drizzle over the elk steak once it goes onto the plate. What I do with the morel mushrooms is that I take a little bit of the Zinfandel and some butter and also some very finely minced onions, and I saute them very hot and very fast again so that there's a little bit of char on the outside from the saute pan, because some people find morels to have a slimy mouthfeel, and it keeps them away from enjoying the richness and the savoriness of the morel. You can serve this with a potato, or what I would recommend is a hearty pasta.
Northwest Elk Hunters, there you go.
We help those who produce the food and fiber that supports not only our area here, but throughout the nation, throughout the world.
Lance Zollinger, Northwest Farm Credit Services Regional Vice President.
But we also are very interested in making sure that these products and services get to those who need them. Unfortunately, we have various areas, even in some of the top producing agricultural areas, people still are in situations where they don't have enough to feed their families.
Northwest Farm Credit Services employees contribute in a variety of ways.
We've directly focused an effort on donating not only dollars to the food bank to help them with distribution of that food. We've helped fund trucks that have been purchased and ways to make sure that those products that they have in the food bank can get out to those who need them. But we also spend a lot of time as a group serving in the food bank.
Northwest Farm Credit Services. Customer owned, customer driven.
This is David Sparks for Sportsman Spotlight.
It's Sportsman Show season, and two great ones are coming your way in Washington this year, courtesy of Schuler Productions. The Tri-City Sportsman Show kicks off the season at the track in Pasco from January 16th through the 18th, and the always popular Central Washington Sportsman Show returns to the Yakima Sundome February 20th through the 22nd. Both shows are going to have lots of guides, outfitters, and other exhibitors to include sporting goods dealers that are going to offer some great deals. There's also fun for the kids who can catch fish and more. Throw-in seminars on fishing, hunting, and camp cooking, along with archery and air rifle ranges at the track for the kids, and a horn and antler competition at the Sundome, and you won't want to miss either show. It's the Tri-City Show, January 16th through the 18th, and the Central Washington Show, February 20th through the 22nd. We'll see you there.
You demand quality performance from your binoculars, whether you use them in the field, on the water, or at a stadium. But you don't want to spend a fortune. That's where the BX McKenzie binoculars from Leupold come in. These armored, waterproof binoculars are both comfortable and dependable. Look for your McKenzie binoculars at quality sporting goods retailers near you, to include your Cabela's, Sportsman's Warehouse, or Northwest Weimar stores. BX McKenzie, bringing your world into sharper focus, only from Leupold.
I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it. Gonna get up before the sun rise above us.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It is sturgeon fishing season on the lower Columbia River, and one of the best guides around that fishes for these huge prehistoric fish is Steve Leonard, the owner of Steve's Guided Adventures. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Steve, I understand you just got off the water, that you actually were out fishing for sturgeon. Where were you at, and how'd you do?
I was fishing what they call the Bonneville Pool, so it's above Bonneville Dam, the first dam on the lower Columbia here. That's where the open season is for keepers, if you're looking to keep them. That's where I'm targeting right now. That's what my customers want to do. So I was fishing today. We end up with 12 shakers, one nice keeper, and not bad for a day for up there. The weather was, actually pretty nice. It's supposed to be a little windy coming up, but other than that, it was good fishing.
Let's go ahead and talk about the different lengths of sturgeon, and we'll go ahead and start by talking about what is a legal fish.
Okay, illegal sturgeon, they've changed it, I think 4 or 5 years ago. They measure to the inside fork of the tail now instead of the tip of the tail. Different sections of rivers have different rules or measurements. This area here is 38 minimum to a 54 maximum length. So it averaged out to about a 42 to 60-inch sturgeon, which is what it was when they let us measure it to the tip of the tail.
And anything that's smaller than that is basically referred to as a shaker, isn't it?
That's correct.
And anything above that is an oversized sturgeon, and I know how big they get, but I don't think all of our listeners do. How big did these sturgeon get on the Columbia River?
They get huge. My largest to date is 14 feet.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, big. And we actually got a measurement on it in the water. We didn't take it out of the water. We had it on an 18-foot boat. This is in 1992 we caught that fish.
I've seen them up to 12. I've probably 12. I've never, ever seen one that huge.
So every year, not every year, but I will get one 12-footer a season, but average fish on most of these fish are running 7 to 9 feet in length, and then we get our occasional 10s. But your average would probably be 7, 8 feet, 150 to 300 pounds, depending on if it's a female or a male.
And these are tough fighting fish, aren't they? I mean, I get one oversized, and I'm pretty much worn out for at least a couple hours. Tell our listeners a little bit more about how they fight.
Absolutely. They will definitely test your strength. They're a hard-fighting, powerful fish. Some areas I fish, they actually, believe it or not, they jump. Some people say, nah, they don't jump. They do. I've had fish I got on my videos, on my website, fish completely out of the water, peeling line. Sometimes they're way behind the boat. It ain't, as exciting as it was when it was right next to the boat. I had one this year jump out of the water right next to my boat, and I thought it was coming in the boat. I almost jumped out the backside of my boat because of it. So she was huge. I have a chair that I built, a fighting chair, because a lot of guys don't have chairs and your back will give out on you. I got fighting belts and all that stuff, but over time the lower back will give out. So I came up with a design of a fighting chair, which made my days longer, I should say, because my customers they want more now, where before they're like, ooh, noon, they're done, So,
right.
But it's all about the customer having a good time, and especially I get ladies and kids and stuff in the boat, it really helps because they will test your strength. My whole saying is make sure you have a note from your wife and your health insurance, your life insurance is up current. and everything else, because it's gonna break you down.
Oh, yeah. You are not kidding about that. Going back to the keeper sturgeon, how long does this season usually last, and what are some of the gear rules that people need to be aware of?
Okay, the season typically they run it through like the 25th of January. However, the last couple of years, there's been a little bit more pressure up there because of Lower Columbia closure. We got some Indians doing a little more pressure up there with commercial gill net in them, so it's taking a little bit more of a beating. So with that being said, they've extended the season this year all the way through January and February. They're going to keep counting their numbers. If they get their numbers, which is a quota, then they will shut it down early. Usually we don't get the quota due to weather. Sometimes you have a beautiful week and then you get some winds. It's just you can't fish it. So with that being said, in the wintertime compared to our summertime, it's a little bit different. So it's open all the way through February until they get the quota, if they do. Gear restrictions, barbless hooks. I mean, everything's going barbless now. I really like it for the sturgeon. It's been like this as long as I can remember, especially when you'll go up there and some days we'll catch 40 or 50 small shaker fish to get our limit, and they're using smelt and squid, and they're down in their mouth or farther down in their throat area that you can get them out with the barbless hook, where otherwise you would not ever get these hooks out. So it's very awesome for that there is a barbless hook fishery on those. And that one single hook, you can't have doubles. Years ago used to be a double hook setup. So I'm running a 6/0 Gamagatu hook is what I'm running for all my keeper size fish up there. It works great for that, for all my squid and smelt and different baits that we're doing. So that's about the only gear restriction that you have to have.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. We're talking to guide Steve Leonard about sturgeon fishing on the Lower Columbia. The season for keeper sturgeon is open right now. You can keep one. You can catch a whole bunch before you take that keeper home. So let's talk about something else here. How much weight do you generally need to get on the bottom? I know this is dependent based on how many spillways are open on the dams, but when you're going out there, give or take, what do you need to plan on?
Average, your minimum is 12 ounces. Especially when you're in the clam beds, it's only 20, 30 feet of water. 12 ounces is plenty. The key is to keep your bait on the bottom. You don't want it floating around. However, a lot of times this time of the year, the fish are deep, typically. Don't give up on the clam bed. So I'm fishing water. Like yesterday, I started in some 60. I ended up in some water over 100 feet deep. When you get into that deep water, you need to use minimum of 16 ounces, if not 20 ounces, just to make sure that your gear's on the bottom and not drifting around down there.
Let's talk about bait, because you mentioned smelt, you mentioned squid. It wasn't that long ago that everybody was using shad.
Okay, well, shad is what I use for my oversized trophy trips.
Okay.
I don't have as much luck on it this time of the year. Some guys may. I've tried it. It just doesn't seem to work as well for me. So I use shad to target my big fish, my trophy fish. This time of the year, typically it's squid. Now you can use pickled squid. So, I do a lot of pickling, a lot of pickled squid, but you can use just regular, good, fresh, frozen squid. You can go to any Chinese market. They have food grade. It's really good 1-pound boxes that you can buy there. Awesome, good bait. So I use squid, I use smelt. There for a couple of years we couldn't get smelt, so I was running on my old stock, and then last year we finally had a little season, so I got resupplied back up. And sand shrimp, night crawlers, those have been herring. I use a lot of my herring for salmon fishing in the spring and the fall that I do not use up. I will take them and freeze them. Some have anise in them and stuff, or they're in a little saltwater brine, so they won't freeze completely, but they're good bait to take out and use on these sturgeon up above there. It's an awesome bait.
Great.
The bait will change. The bite will change. 1 minute it said squid. Yesterday we couldn't hardly get bit on squid, and other days you can't get them to stay away from it. So you got to have everything, especially for me, in the cooler. Yesterday was a smelt bite.
This is great. This is great advice, yeah. Steve. Let me ask you one more thing here. You've got your keeper sturgeon. You're going to go ahead and clean it for them. For people who have never dealt with sturgeon before and say, how do I cook it? What do you tell them?
Well, what I tell them is the best way to do it is obviously 99% of these sturgeon are flayed out. There's no bone in them. They got cartilage for their bone, for their spine, and all that stuff. So when you flay this beautiful piece of fillet out, this meat, it's white meat. Make sure all the gristle's out of it. Flay all the little fat off the backside. You'll see a little brown layer. That's just a little bit of layer of fat underneath the skin. Get rid of all that. Your batter, your deep fried is probably the number one fish and chips. Anything you do with a halibut, you can do with sturgeon. It's a little bit firmer than halibut, so it will dry out a little bit quicker. So make sure you don't overcook it if you're going to grill it, bake it, things like that. Deep frying it, you put it in the batter, golden brown, pull it out, and it's absolutely delicious. Well, this sounds fantastic. Let's go ahead and give out a website and a telephone number so folks can learn more about sturgeon fishing and book a trip with you. Yeah, so it's www.stevesguidedadventures. The Steves and Adventures has an S on it, .com. My phone number is 360-609-1902.
That's 360-609-1902. Again, 360-609-1902 for Steve Leonard. He will take you sturgeon fishing and get you into some of these great fish. And his website is stevesguidedadventures.com. Again, stevesguidedadventures.com. Steve has been a guide for a long time. He's got a great name in the industry, and if you go with him, you're going to have a wonderful time. Steve, thanks for breaking down this fishery for us on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Thank you, guys.
Rise above us, got a bamboo pole and a leaky boat. It ain't much, but if you bail, it'll float. I'm gonna take you fishing, honey. You're gonna love it.
Fishing fun and adventure is waiting for you in sunny Baja, Mexico this spring. You've got your choice of attending the Baja Amigos trip or the Baja Heroes trip. The trips are offered by The Real News, and you will be spending 6 nights and 5 days on the East Cape of Baja, Mexico, staying at the luxurious Hotel Palmas de Cortez. You'll have 3 meals a day. You'll have wonderful amenities and 4 days of fishing for marlin, sailfish, dorado, roosterfish, and more. Find out more about the Baja Amigos and Baja Heroes trips, both offered for as low as $1,100 per person, by calling The Real News at 425-334-8966. 425-334-8966. That's 425-334-8966 for Baja Amigos and fishing fun in Mexico.
We're back with John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
It's time for another Max Minute.
Fish on!
Brought to you every week by Max Lure Company. We've been talking about places where you can go kokanee fishing in the Northwest, and let's talk about the great state of Idaho. Any place that stands out for you that you like to fish over there, Lance?
Hayden Lake, John.
Lance Murs, Hayden Lake, he says so. Go there.
Hayden Lake is absolutely phenomenal for kokanee fishing. This past year was an outstanding year for kokanee. Anybody who went there had their limits within a couple of hours.
And that is a very popular lake up on the Panhandle for kokanee fishing, but there's lots of other lakes as well that have kokanee in the Gem State. Lucky Peak Reservoir, Arrow Rock Reservoir, and of course, Dvorak Reservoir all kick out good numbers of kokanee every year. And if you're going to use a lure to fish for kokanee, you know, we talked last week about the Cha-Cha Squidder, but let's talk about the original kokanee lure that Max Lure Company produced, because it is still catching a ton of fish.
Well, what you're talking about is kind of a spin-off to our famous wedding ring spinner.
The Kokanee Pro, right?
It is. It's the double whammy Kokanee Pro, and it basically has that same body as a wedding ring spinner, but we changed it. We put a Max Lure Smile Blade on there, patented, works fantastic, and then we've got 2 red hooks, either size 4 or size 6, with no gap in between the hooks. So it exclusively targets that kokanee fishery, but not only can it be caught, for kokanee, but it can also be caught for using trout too, and any kind of other fish.
And that's actually a really good point, because there's a lot of lakes you can fish that have both trout and kokanee, and instead of changing lures, you can use the same lure. I've had success doing that exact thing with the double whammy Kokanee Pro. So again, folks, it's the double whammy Kokanee Pro. It's the original kokanee lure that is produced by Max Lure Company. It's been catching kokanee for years in Idaho and throughout the Northwest. Look for it at maxlure.com or in your local sporting goods store. And that wraps up another Max Minute from Max Lure Company.
The 2-burner camp stove has evolved, and today's line of portable camp stoves from Camp Chef have come a long way from your father's propane stove, featuring matchless ignition, more cooking power, and in some cases a built-in grill or extra burner. And you've got what you need to whip up some great grub in the field. Look for the complete line of Mountain Series stoves at your local sporting goods store or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
That's the sound you hear when a fish hits the new Sonic bait fish from Max Lure Company. This metal lure can be cast, trolled, or jigged and will catch just about anything that swims in the sea, the river, or the lake. The Sonic bait fish has a unique vibration and flutter that can be rigged in 7 different ways. With all sorts of eye-catching colors and weights available, you'll be reaching for the Sonic bait fish as your go-to lure. It's the Sonic bait fish. Only from Max Lure Company.
When it comes to camping, I like to relax, but I was getting stressed about camp cooking. Then I discovered the Camp Chef Portable Outdoor Oven. This junior-sized oven works with a small propane bottle and is perfect for family camping trips. With a matchless ignition, heating up to 400 degrees, and space to put a 9x13-inch pan, I can cook cinnamon rolls for breakfast, casseroles for dinner, and pie for dessert. Look for the Portable Outdoor Oven at a store near you or online at campchef.com. Camp Chef, the way to cook outdoors.
You're back with Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It is coyote hunting season, at least. Well, it's coyote hunting season a lot, but now is prime time. And with us here to tell us more about winter predator hunting is Chris Morse with Oak Grove Guns. They are located in the Santa Clara Square in Eugene, Oregon, and they're also a local sponsor of our show. Chris, welcome.
Thank you.
Chris, why do you think it is that so many people get excited about coyote hunting this time of year?
Well, right now, this time of year, hunting season's kind of winding down for everything else, and it gives those sportsmen out there something to do when your elk and deer season are all wrapped up. So coyote season's the next best thing, and when it gets cold like this, the animals start getting a little hungry, so it makes them a little bit easier to call in.
You know, I think another reason, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is that at this time of year, usually the pelts are the thickest, and I know there used to be a market for coyote pelts, but not so much anymore, is there?
Not so much anymore. There is still people that will buy the pelts from coyotes, but it's not as often as it used to be.
So one important thing, though, that I think, getting back to this whole thing of hunting is conservation. Why do people go coyote hunting? Well, it's simply predator control, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the main big reasons. Like you said, it's the predator control out there.
And we're not just talking about wild animal, folks, in terms of deer and elk, but we're also talking about livestock as well. Sheep and goats and cows that all fall prey to coyotes, especially this time of year. So let's go ahead and talk about this hunting where you're actually kind of helping other animals and livestock out. And I guess we need to start with the appropriate firearm for the sport. That's why I'm calling a gun shop here. If somebody comes in and says, I want to get into coyote hunting, what do you usually set up for them, or what do you recommend?
I recommend not a big caliber by any means. With it being a smaller predator like that, you don't need anything real big like a 30-06 or anything like that. I would probably, if somebody came in here wanting a predator gun, I would probably set them up with a 223 or a 22-250, or if they wanted to shoot a little bit further, probably a 243 or something like that. Just something in a small cartridge.
The 223 platform, I think, is perfect for predator hunting. It is just, high velocity rounds. They usually shoot real flat, and it's just really good. I know some people have been going really low caliber, those .17 caliber rounds. Do you recommend those?
The 17 is a good little round. That 17 HMR is a fairly flat shooting little gun, but you get any kind of wind that's pushing it at all, you're not shooting as accurate as your heavier bullets like out of your 223s.
And let's talk 22s. Yes or no?
Like I say, it's better to get out there and shoot with something that you have than not go out and shoot at all. I've hunted predators for, most of my life, and I've shot them with everything from a 22 all the way up to big calibers. So, they work just fine. They're not going to be out there for your accurate or out there for the distance that you would normally try to go for on some of those hard dogs to call in. They don't like to come in, within 200-300 yards. But, 22 will work just fine as long as you get the right shot placement on them.
Okay, so we've talked about some calibers, and when you're talking about the 223, you're basically talking about a semi-auto. Is there anything wrong with using a bolt action when you're using a 22 or a 17 cal HMR?
No, not at all. I actually, one of my favorite hunting rounds is a little 22 Hornet, and it's a bolt action. I hunt 90% of the stuff that I hunt is with a little bolt action rifle, and they're a good little round. I mean, they're a good little gun. You don't need the semi-auto platform to go hunt predators at all, but that little bolt action does the job just fine.
So we've talked guns. Let's talk ammo. What kind of ammo do you recommend?
Well, that all depends if you're wanting to try to save the pelt for the animal that you're shooting or not.
Okay.
If you're going to shoot an animal and try to save that pelt, you don't want to use something that is going to blow up on contact like some of these rounds will. You want to use something that's going to do the job and not blow the back of the hide off.
So almost ball ammo, for lack of a better word, or full metal jacket ammo?
I honestly, full metal jacket ammo, I don't recommend, because you're just more than likely going to just wound the animal and it has an opportunity to run off. I would use something with a soft lead point, or a ballistic tip. But ballistic tips are made to hit and expand really, really hard and do a lot of damage coming out the backside.
And is that the sort of round you'd recommend if you're just looking to put the animal down and you're not worried about the pelt?
If you're not worried about the pellets, yeah, that ballistic tip's going to do the job for you, and it's most of the time one shot, and it's a quick, clean kill.
You're listening to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. It's winter. We're talking coyote hunting with a guy who knows about it. His name is Chris Morse. He works at Oak Grove Guns in Eugene, Oregon, a local sponsor of our show on 1120 KPNW. So we've talked about the right gun. We've talked about the right ammo. Now let's talk about tactics. How does one go about hunting coyotes?
Well, they have a lot of different ways. You have mouth calls where you're basically blowing on a predator call yourself. You want something for the area you're in. So if you're in the desert or something like that, something like a jackrabbit call, something that'll carry quite a ways because it's not the wind blows fairly decent out there. And then if you're in the woods and stuff like over here and not in the desert, just a little woodpecker squeak or something like that works fairly well. They make the mouth calls and they make electronic calls, which is what I use personally.
Oh, interesting. And, I guess when I think of predator hunting, I always think of predator hunting, in the desert or on the plains and these big open expanses. I never think of doing it west of the Cascades, and I never thought of that call, like you said. What kind of electric calls do you use west of the mountains to attract coyotes?
The call that I use is it's called a Fox Pro. They're a fairly spendy little call, but you can download like 64 different sounds on them. So you can use like a little woodpecker squeak or squall, like a raven squawk, which brings the attention because anything a raven's trying to get on normally means there's something there to scavenge.
Okay, fair enough. So we've got the call down. What else is important for hunters who are trying to get a coyote to know?
Wind. I mean, you want to be set up right in the wind. You don't want to be, your call blowing. If you set your call out in front of you and the wind's blowing straight at you, you're blowing the sound basically behind you. You want to set up in a fairly calm area where the wind's not blowing real well. You don't get too much sound carry when the wind's going. So set up against a tree. Absolutely pertinent to never do sudden quick movements because they'll pick up that quick movement quicker than anything.
Is it just that they've got great eyesight, or they're just a kind of a wary animal by nature?
They've got great eyesight, and they're a very wary animal by nature. They know what they're looking for when they're coming in, and if it doesn't look right, they won't come in.
This is some great advice. Again, this is Chris Morse with Oak Grove Guns, and we ought to talk a little bit about your store. I love that store that you have in Santa Clara Square in Eugene. Tell our listeners more about it.
Family-owned business. Been at this location for probably real close to 3 years now. We try to sell a really good product at a really good price. Our price points, we've been told by a lot of different customers that we are actually very well priced against other stores around, which we take pride in that. We try to know what we're doing in here when you come in, and if we don't know what we're doing, we'll definitely get you somebody that does know what they're doing. And we sell everything from rifles, AR-style platforms, bolt guns, pistols, revolvers. We pretty much sell everything. We're a dealer in Benelli. We're a SIG direct dealer as well, so we get fairly decent pricing on that stuff if anybody needs anything like that. And if we don't have it, we'll try our hardest to find it.
The other thing I like, folks, is very personalized, friendly service. You don't feel like you're just a number that's wandering through a big box store. And that's a great thing about these little gun stores, and especially well-stocked ones like Oak Grove Guns. As a matter of fact, you have a website, too, and you actually have quite a bit of your selection on the web, don't you?
Yeah, we do, and we try to keep our website up to date as good as possible, but sometimes we're too busy in here to actually keep that website up to date. But you can always give us a call, too, and ask us if we have it in stock, and we'd be more than happy to help you out.
So go ahead and check out their website, at least get a good idea of some of the things they have in stock. The website's really simple, oakgroveguns.com. That's oakgroveguns.com, and their phone number is 541-636-5392. That's 541-636-5392. Or if you find yourself in Eugene, just head on over to the Santa Clara Square and drop in to Oak Grove Guns. Chris, thanks for taking the time to break down coyote hunting for all of us here on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to tell you I just brought down that buck, but I didn't. I missed. And you know why I missed? Because of the scope I've got on my rifle. You see, my friends told me to get a loopholed rifle scope. Why? Well, because Leupold is America's optical authority. They make a huge variety of quality scopes for every need, and they make them right here in the Northwest. Unfortunately, I didn't listen. I used the cheap scope that came with this rifle when I bought it. And when it came time to pull the trigger, well, let's just say things were a little blurry. Now, I've got nothing to look forward to except a long, empty-handed walk back home. Next time I come out into the field, there's going to be a Leupold scope on my rifle. And next time, I'm not going to miss.
Leupold Rifle Scopes. Check out the whole line at leupold.com and look for them at a sporting goods store near you.
Welcome back to Northwestern Outdoors Radio. I'm John Cruz. It's time again for news and reports from the field, brought to you every week by Mardon Resort at Eastern Washington's Potholes Reservoir. January has been a great month for both waterfowl hunting and walleye fishing in and around Mardon Resort. One of my favorite anglers on Potholes Reservoir is Barb Brady. She's a woman who can outfish me with one hand tied behind her back. She posted a picture on Facebook of a 12.8-pound walleye she caught out of the reservoir this month, and the folks at Mardon Resort have been sharing photos of big walleye caught right off the dock at their resort. How big are these walleye? How about a 16-pounder? That's right, a 16-pound walleye was caught right off the dock. Unbelievable. You can get in on this fun too by heading to Potholes Reservoir. Stop by the store at the resort and they'll hook you up with the tackle you need to be successful. And if you need a place to stay, they can help you with that as well. Find out more at mardonresort.com. That's mardonresort.com, where the fish bite, but we don't. We start off our news with an interesting question I knew I was going to be asking you sooner than later. Should you kill one endangered species to save another? From Northwest Sportsman Magazine, we've learned about the following scenario. There's one herd of woodland caribou found in the lower 48 states. It's the Selkirk herd of caribou, which calls an area that straddles northern Idaho, northwest Montana, northeast Washington, and British Columbia home. There are only 18 of these animals left, and they are listed in both Canada and the United States as an endangered species. Now, just a couple of years ago, there were 50 of these caribou, but wolves have found the herd and found them to be easy pickings. In just the last couple of months, 2 of these caribou from the herd have been killed by wolves, which means there are only 16 of these animals left now. And wolves, according to the Ministry of Forests in Canada, are the leading cause of death for these caribou. If nothing is done, there's a very good chance there will be no woodland caribou left from this herd in short order. Gray wolves are listed as endangered at a state level in Washington, but are hunted in Idaho and Montana. Wolves are also doing quite well from a population point of view in British Columbia, and with that in mind, Canadian authorities plan to kill up to 24 wolves with marksmen operating out of helicopters to save the Selkirk caribou before the snow melts this winter. With Washington wolf packs crossing the border too at times, there's a good possibility some of these quote-unquote endangered wolves will be under the gun when they cross into Canada. I haven't heard whether or not there's going to be any pushback from the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife or any environmental groups, but I would love to hear what logic they would use to speak out against this plan. Personally, I think it makes sense, and I hope it's not too little, too late to save these very rare caribou found right here in the inland Northwest. In fishing news, an Idaho angler caught and released a record rainbow trout this month. The story starts on January 8th. That's the day Larry Warren went fishing on the North Fork of the Clearwater River, where he tied into a monster fish and managed to land it. The fish in question, which, well, looking at the picture, looks like an oversized football with fins, was a 28-plus pound rainbow trout that was 32 inches long, and it had a girth of 28.5 inches. That's about 8 pounds bigger than the previous record. Unfortunately, Larry couldn't take that fish to a certified scale and had to let it go. In case you're wondering why he did it, I can tell you it was for the right reasons. The regulations said he had to. On this river, any rainbow trout longer than 20 inches with an intact adipose fin is considered a wild steelhead and has to be released. Never mind the fact that this was clearly a freshwater rainbow trout. The rules are the rules, and Larry did the right thing in following them. So, although Larry won't get credit for catching an official record, Those of us here at Northwestern Outdoors Radio salute you, Larry, for catching what we consider to be the new record rainbow trout for the state of Idaho. Do you watch TV? Well, the 144 officers who work for the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife's Enforcement Division are being featured on Rugged Justice, a 6-episode documentary series airing Sunday nights at 8 p.m. on the Animal Planet television channel. The first episode aired last week, and as WDFW Enforcement Chief Steve Crown says, Rugged Justice provides a window into the vital, varied, and sometimes harrowing work of officers as they protect nature and people in Washington. I personally don't watch a lot of television, but I'm looking forward to seeing these episodes and seeing some of these hard-working officers in action. Next up on Northwestern Outdoors Radio, we're talking to Todd McKay, the Public Affairs Officer for the Bitterroot National Forest. It's wintertime in Montana. A lot of people want to be indoors, but I understand you're telling people to get outside in the Bitterroot Valley. Where should they go?
Yeah, a couple places on the forest that are must-see this time of year. One would be Lost Trail, Powder Mountain ski area. It sits on the Montana-Idaho border. Gets about 300 inches of powder a year. Very, very popular, awesome ski area. But unlike some of the other areas, you're not going to run into a lot of the crowds that you would at, say, some of the more well-known resorts. So definitely Lost Trail ski area. If you don't want to do downhill and you want to do some cross-country, Chief Joseph ski area, which sits right across Highway 93 from Lost Trail, is a fantastic cross-country ski area. Miles and miles of trails, different terrain for all different abilities. Great place for families, people of all ages to come and cross-country ski. So the Bitterroot isn't just a fantastic place in the summer, it's awesome in the winter too.
Go ahead and orient our listeners. What is the closest town to these two ski areas?
Yeah, so it sits on our Sula Ranger District. So the closest town on the Idaho side would be Salmon. The closest town on the Montana side would be either Darby or Sula.
Well, there you go, folks. Just 2 more reasons to get outside and play this winter. Todd, thanks for telling us all about it.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Wake up to winter in Wallowa County. Grab your camera and don your skis for some Nordic skiing adventure at Salt Creek Summit or Wallowa Lake. Or spend the day on the family-friendly slopes of Fergie Ridge. Or slip into a set of skates and enjoy some time on the ice at our outdoor ice rink. Need to warm up? Then grab a cup of coffee or hot chocolate at one of our fine coffee and confectionery shops. And when evening comes, enjoy some of Wallowa County's fine dining and gaze at the stars before you dream of tomorrow's adventures. Your winter adventure begins at www.wallawacountychamber.com.
We're back with one last cast from John Cruz on Northwestern Outdoors Radio.
Sportsman shows are continuing to go off in Oregon and Washington. The Washington Sportsman Show is taking place as we speak at the fairgrounds in Puyallup and runs through Sunday. This is a big show, and it features a lot of great speakers, boats, RVs, and hundreds of guides, outfitters, and other exhibitors. As big as this show is, it pales in comparison to the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show in Portland, taking place February 4th through the 8th at the Expo Center, and we are excited to be going back there this year to promote our show and our local affiliate in the Portland area, 1360 KUIK. With us here to tell us more, once again, Joe Brennan. Joe, welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Joe, this is a huge show that takes place in Portland every year.
It is one of the biggest shows in the United States, John.
What I love about this show, and folks, I got to attend there last year, and I'm going to be fortunate enough to have a booth there again this year. I hope you'll stop by our Northwestern Outdoors Radio booth, but there are so many things to see and do here. Let's go ahead and run through some of the highlights that you think folks are really going to be attracted to here.
Well, this show has a little bit of everything, John. There is going to be numerous guides and outfitters from around the world. We're talking Africa, New Zealand, all of North America, Canada, and in Alaska as well. I think that just alone is worth people coming in and seeing what's out there to hunt and fish around the world. We also have a great camp cooking demonstrations. Mentioned to you earlier in our Washington show, I have a new gentleman by the name of Roger Neufeld coming in doing some beginning and advanced sausage making demonstrations. We have our Free Kids Trout Pond. There's a warm water bass fishing tank that's going to be having seminars held on it. We have our bait rigging demonstrations, our Lawrence Learning Center, which is adding a new presentation in there at the altimeter on their Insight Genesis mapping system. Again, this show has so much to offer to the outdoor enthusiast.
And if you're an angler out there, folks, you've really got to attend this. And Joe was kind of touching on this. There are so many seminars covering different aspects of angling that it will just blow your mind. And the guides and outfitters are also great sources of information, and there are literally hundreds of them, like Joe said, from not just the Northwest, but all over the world. Now, we talked about the camp cooking, and Tiffany Haugen, I know, was up in Puyallup. Are we going to be lucky enough to see her in Portland as well? Because she is one of my favorite outdoor cooking personalities.
Oh, yes. Miss Tiffany will be back in Portland, again, in our camp cooking demonstration. She's going to be doing a seminar with her husband, Scott, on butchering big game animals, as well as doing a smoking fish and big game seminar as well. So we are looking forward to having Miss Tiffany back with us, yes.
In addition to the Haugens being there, and that's always a big draw, I consider them one of the first families of outdoors hunting and fishing here in the Northwest, if not the nation. Who else do you have in terms of big names that's going to be either doing demonstrations or seminars this year at the Portland show?
In the fishing arena, I have, again, Buzz Ramsey, Jack Glass will be doing some seminars.
Those are pretty big names.
Eric Lindy will be down in the bait rigging demonstrations. So that's to name a few in the fishing. On the hunting side, again, there's Dan Clore coming back with his elk calling demonstrations. We also have Peter Kummerfeld that we mentioned earlier doing his outdoor survival. Glenn Berry, another elk hunting enthusiast. I have a new young lady by the name of Kristen Folfolk who will be doing some dog training, mostly dealing with off-season work on your hunting dogs.
I will be attending that, Joe, because my dog needs some serious work.
Yes. Well, I think that's a must for most people, myself included. So there's a few names in there. Gary Lewis, the outdoor writer out of Central Oregon, he'll be doing some hunting seminars as well.
Gary's fantastic people, and he's a fine hunter and fisherman, too. By the way, folks, he's got a brand new book out you'll want to check out that I know he's going to have the show as well. Before we go, we ought to mention stuff for the kids. I know you're going to have that free trout fishing pond, which is always a big hit. Anything else for the kids?
Oh, absolutely. We always have kids' archery shooting area for the kids. We always welcome the kids over at camp cooking because all the presenters, involve the children as well. And just the show itself, just to have the kids come down and take in the enthusiasm of all the hunting and fishing, the boats and the RVs and everything associated with the great outdoors. So we welcome the kids. We want them there.
And I'm glad you touched on that last part, folks. The RVs and the boats. If you're looking for a boat, if you're looking for an RV, this is a great opportunity to not just find what you're looking for, but find a really good deal as well. Again, it's the Pacific Northwest Sportsman Show. It's taking place from Wednesday, February 4th through Sunday, February 8th at the Expo Center right off of Marine Drive in Portland. It's a great show. I'm excited to be there, and I'm excited to see all of you as well. Joe, thanks for telling us all about it. Can't wait to see you there.
Thank you, John. And like you say, it's a great outdoors coming indoors, and this is the big one. People can't miss it.
Sandwiched between these two shows is the Eugene Boat and Sportsman Show. It's at the Convention Center in Eugene, January 30th through February 1st. We've been there exhibiting, and I'll tell you what, it's a really good show. Montana is becoming an outdoor woman program, has a fun 2-day event for you on January 28th and the 31st. It's an ice fishing class just for women, and it kicks off on the 28th at 6:30 p.m. at Lone Pine State Park near Kalispell. You'll take in a 2.5-hour class about ice fishing basics, and then on the 31st, you'll head out to an area lake and put that knowledge to use from 8 a.m. to noon. The cost is only $10. All of the ice fishing equipment will be provided, and you don't even need a fishing license. Contact the staff at Lone Pine State Park to register for this class that's just for the ladies. If you're looking for something fun to do next Saturday and want to donate to a good cause, head to the Cal Ranch store in Chubbuck, Idaho, and play a few hands of poker for a good cause on the 31st. The Sportsmen Against Hunger event's going to be going on there, and proceeds from the $10 hands of poker you play go to the Idaho Food Bank. You have to be 18 or over to play poker here, but if you do end up with a winning hand, you can win some very nice prizes, which includes framed art or even a firearm. There will be other booths there as well, promoting conservation organizations and the work they do in eastern Idaho. Sounds like fun. Again, that's the Cal Ranch store on the 31st in Chubbuck, Idaho for the Sportsmen Against Hunger event. If you get a chance, I hope you'll check out our Facebook page. You can find it by just going to Northwestern Outdoors Radio on Facebook. We're always posting information there, including photos, and obviously photos don't make it on our radio show. We've got a website too. That's northwesternoutdoors.com. You'll find links to find out more about our guests, and you can catch last week's show just in case you missed it. Again, that's northwesternoutdoors.com for our website and Northwestern Outdoors Radio on Facebook. Another website to be aware of is RenoViolaOutdoors.com. That's the home of WRVO Radio. It's an internet radio station dedicated to outdoors programming. We are proud to be part of the lineup. We air there several days a week, and we hope you'll listen in to us and lots of other great radio programs focusing on the outdoors here in North America. That website again, RenoViolaOutdoors.com. That's all for this week. You'll have to forgive me if my voice sounds a little bit off. I've been battling a little bit of a cold, but things are looking up, and I'm looking forward to getting outside again. So until next time, take care, God bless, and make it a point to spend some time outdoors.